I'm Nicole.
And I'm Wesley.
If you're watching this, you're probably about to embark on a new life adventure.
You're probably scared, excited, nervous, which is fine. We're here to help alleviate that stress, and we're excited to help.
We remember the first time we left home and had to live with someone new. Having a roommate for the first time is never an easy task.
It's not. Our purpose of this will be to help you understand the importance of the roommate relationship and to discuss potential conflicts and how to cope.
We'll be emphasizing the benefits of having a positive roommate relationship in order to alleviate the stress and fear you guys might have when you move into your new living space.
We'll also be talking to members of staff at Residential Life who will give us a more behind-the-scenes look at what you might experience throughout the year.
We hope you'll be able to take as much as possible away from all of this.
College roommate relationships are quite unique because of the frequent contact and the responsibilities and compromises that will come from the living environment that the pair will be in. It is important for incoming freshmen to be comfortable with their new living situation as a whole.
Functional and positive relationship between roommates can make even the worst dorm room situation more enjoyable. It can also contribute to each individual person's physical, emotional, and psychological state, academic progress and success, and hopefully make for a rewarding first-year experience as a whole. Waldo and Furman conducted a study in which students rated their roommate relationship on a scale of measure of trust and intimacy, and personal emotional adjustment to their new school. The participants who scored highest on trust and intimacy within their roommate relationship also scored significantly higher on the emotional adjustment scale. A study by Nuds showed that having a roommate relationship fail could often affect even the smallest of an individual person's behavioral differences. This includes social habits, personal habits, and most importantly, study habits.
In another study by Waldo raters initially assessed certain hypothetical situations between roommates and their use of positive communication skills during these situations. These skills found to be significantly correlated to positive overall adjustment with first-year students. The follow-up studies showed that these positive communication skills and stronger or closer relationships between roommates were associated with higher GPA and greater retention significantly. Communication is one of the most important parts to resolving roommate conflicts and assumptions. Most of the time, we assume things worse to be than they actually are. In a study by Emerson on responding to roommate troubles, there is a brief response on an individual confronting her roommate about changing her clothing in front of her boyfriend. Here is what she said.
At first, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to start a conflict between us, because I really did like her. Each time she would change, my boyfriend and I would talk about it, and I was going to say something to her about it, but I just kept putting it off until next time. I think more than that, I was just trying to get used to it so it wouldn't become any big deal to me.
It can take time to feel a person out and see how they interact in a dorm room setting. Recognizing this person's characteristics may alter your own actions for better or for worse. Robert Carson's principle of complementarity explains this idea. His notion says that a person's behavioral style is known to prompt or limit the behavioral style of another, and vice versa. It would make sense for this to happen with strangers living in close quarters. Roommates that are initially forced to live together likely will want to maintain some sense of harmony, regardless of their feelings about the other person. In order to do so, they will alter their behavior whenever they come into contact with the person. Markey and Kurtz examined Carson's principle of complementarity, hypothesizing that as interpersonal relationships advance through dyadic exchanges, then the behavioral styles of its roommates will be changed in order to increase complementarity.
The complementarity of behavioral styles and personality traits between roommates were measured at 2 separate times during their first college semester. Once after the pair had been roommates for just 2 weeks, and once after they had been roommates for the entire semester. The results concluded that the roommates' behavioral styles did not complement each other after only living together for 2 weeks, but did complement each other after living together for 15 weeks at higher levels of acquaintanceship. This suggests that roommate relationships will progress over time. Moreover, it is safe to assume that initial conflicts between roommates will either be slightly or completely resolved when there are more opportunities to interact and work things out.
Hey guys, we're with Adrian and Whitney today.
We're going to be interviewing them in regards to roommate living situations. So what's the most common type of roommate issue, and what do you recommend in solving it?
Yeah, I think we probably both have a lot that we can say
Yeah.
about this. I would say each case is very different. So students can come in and chat with us about what's going on in their room. It could be anything minor to we have different sleep schedules and it just not working out, to we just can't get along, our personalities clash and it's just not going to work. So one thing that's really great is that we have enough spaces on campus that students can move around and hopefully find someone that is a better fit for them, and so that is a fine solution. We would hope that they could communicate with one another and work it out. That would be probably our second solution in terms of roommate problems, is helping them have that conversation with their roommate about whatever it is that's going on. But ultimately we want them to be comfortable in their situation, and so if that means changing rooms, then we're fine with that.
I think also we try to put a lot of steps into place that would make the transition as easy for them as possible, starting with, well, Facebook really helps us out too, right? Like as soon as they're assigned and they know who they're going to be living with, they have a lot of different ways that they can reach out and get to know each other. So the relationship usually starts, or can start, before they even get on campus, get them getting to know each other and that kind of thing. But we also ask that all students go through roommate agreements and contracts, because it's their first time living together in a lot of situations, and so they don't even know the kind of stuff that is going to be a potential problem for them down the road. But I would say the first thing that came to mind is probably schedule conflicts. Some people are just morning people, some people are night people. You find that out sometimes the hard way. Sometimes you wrote in your preferences that you're going to be a morning person, and then it turns out different once you started college or whatever your classes demand from you. So some of this is just them needing to make the transition to being here. Some of that is a facilitated conversation that we train their RAs to have with them about, these are the common problems, these are some strategies that you can have to talk them through it. And then if things are really irreconcilable, then we can offer them some vacancies and things like that so that they can transition to a better situation. But we try to put a lot of work in on the front end to help them think through some of the things that might be problems with them, to avoid as much of that as we can.
And the questions that are our top choices in terms of matching students have to do with room cleanliness, room loudness or quietness, what their preference is. But what that doesn't measure is personality. So they might match on all of those things perfectly, but
they irritate each other.
Exactly.
Or they're just really
somehow,
people.
it just didn't work out. So that's the unfortunate part of them not being able to meet people ahead of time, is that we have to go with a multiple choice question survey in order to match them up, which is not a perfect science.
Sometimes you move in with your best friend because you think that'll work out great, and it's a catastrophe because you might get along really well as people and just not be able to share the same space. So it's really, I don't think that there's a common formula for people finding things out, because some people, or for finding the perfect roommate, some people just want a roommate. They just want it to be home where their stuff is, where they come home and change clothes or whatever the case may be, or sleep. Some people want their best friend, and they want that to be their partner through the rest of the time that they're in college. So it also is a little bit of their expectations of what they're looking for in getting a roommate too.
This 4 years, even though it sounds cliche, are so different than any other time in your life, where you're just here and focused on school and have the time and capability to try so many things.
Regardless of how close two roommates have become, there is always the possibility that disagreements will form and arguments will occur in the future. Proper communication between individuals will very likely fix potential conflicts, or perhaps even prevent them from happening altogether. Sillars conducted a study in which students were asked to describe a conflict they had previously experienced with their roommate. It was proposed that people first choose conflict strategies based on attributions about the partner's intent to cooperate, the locus of responsibility for conflict, and the stability of conflict. It was then suggested that biases in this attribution process tend to discourage integrative modes of conflict resolution, and that the conflict strategies chosen affects the likelihood of conflict resolution and the degree of satisfaction in the interpersonal relationship.
The participants were given the option of 3 different communicative strategies they use in the roommate conflict. The first was passive indirect, which is suppressing, ignoring, and communicating about conflict indirectly or ambiguously. The next was distributive, which is acknowledging and discussing conflict one-sided. And finally, integrative, which is discussing conflict with a more neutral approach. Distributive strategies express a negative evaluation of the other person, whereas integrative strategies express a more positive evaluation of the other person. Inevitably, integrative strategies were linked with a greater likelihood of conflict resolution and greater satisfaction with the partner than the other two strategies. This study highlights the importance of attributions and how choosing the right coping strategy could very much affect the interpersonal conflict outcomes. When dealing with respect for one another and items, it is always best going into the living situation with the golden rule: treat others the way you would like to be treated.